Honorable members, prayers. Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and our good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people, and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, we don't have any message from His Excellency the President. I don't have any official communication. Just to tell you what you all know, that this day is a rainy day, and we those who are representatives of the residents of Accra are, as you know, completely worried about the rain and its effect on the lives of our people. Actually, a number of the MPs are around their constituencies trying to see what they could do to help the constituents. And so my attention has been drawn to it. And then we've been trying to see what we could do. The House should need to have a meeting, whether at the Committee of the Whole, with the sector ministers in charge of the situation. The drainage situation, the housing sector, works, we have to do to welfare, our behavior as a people, so that we see what kind of interventions as a house we could put in place to support. It's very, very important. We can't continue to have this year in and year on. Yes, it's not acceptable. And so please, leadership, try and get in touch with the sector ministers. Let's have a conversation on this issue. If not, you are the people that your constituents will continue to blame, because you are the people that they elected to make their lives better. So please, I understand why so many of you are not present in the House, but we actually have quorum to do business. With this, we move on to item 4, correction of votes and proceedings and official reports. We will start with the correction of votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 14th June, 2021. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Yes, page 8.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Speaker, page 8, item number 28. My brother Hutoje was in the house yesterday, and I see that he's been marked as absent, not to be absent with leave of the Speaker. So I just want to draw the House attention. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Yes, table office, kindly take note. Page 9. Yes.
Honorable Speaker, page 9, item 7I, second line, Honorable Minister responsible for foreign affairs and regional integration. There's an omission of E after R. Thank you.
Yes, the spelling of regional. Table office, please take note. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 15. Yes, please.
Honorable Speaker, on page 15, item 13, motion, the second paragraph, into bracket, moved by the Honorable Chairman of the Committee on Trade, if we could cancel the article D.
Yes, Honorable Member, you are correct. Table office, kindly take note of that. Page 16. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 11th sitting held on Tuesday, 14th June 2022 are adopted as a true record of proceedings. We'll move on to item 5, which is urgent questions. We have one urgent question. Stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Gomua West, Honourable Richard Jan Mensah, and is directed at the Minister for Energy. Minister for Energy, please kindly take the appropriate position. Yes, Majority Chief Whip.
Speaker, with respect, we received some communication from the Minister of Energy and I've duly communicated to my colleague. So the Deputy Minister will stand instead.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the whip has just confirmed that they discuss it at their level. Other than that, if there is communication, Mr. Speaker should be in the known, table should be in the known, leadership should be in the known. But given that is whip's understanding, Mr. Speaker, since there are not forces of darkness, there are forces of light. I say, since you are not. So, Mr. Speaker, you may want to accommodate the Deputy Minister to stand in his seat since he's one of us. Thank you.
Yes, Deputy Minister for Energy. Your attention has been drawn to the fact that in such matters, we just don't communicate to only the chief whips. I should have been in the know. Deputy Minister, are you listening? You are a member of Parliament. Yes. So if your minister is unable to come, the communication should not just be between you and whips. The first person you should get in touch with is the one in charge of government business. Because this one is part of government business, even though it's parliamentary business because members are asking questions. And then from there, it will get to me, we will know that the minister for good reason is unable to come. Now you made them put the whips, trying to remind them that they are not dark, forces of darkness. You know, I'm happy that they say they are forces of light. I've not heard it anywhere until today. Well, whips are usually known to be forces of darkness. So, honorable member, you may ask your question now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy. The costs or causes of the recent hike in petroleum prices and what strategies government is putting in place to help curb its effect on the Ghanaian citizen.
Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy the cause or causes of the incessant hikes in petroleum prices in the domestic market and what immediate steps government has put in place to mitigate the effect of these prices on the Ghanaian citizen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You are at liberty to ask for an amendment to your question, but what we have is on the order paper. So read exactly what is on the order paper.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy the cause or causes of the incessant hikes in the prices of petroleum products in the domestic market and what immediate steps government has in place to mitigate the effect of these prices on the Ghanaian citizen.
We should delay the surge. Effects of this price surge.
The effect of this price surge on the Ghanaian
citizen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the global oil market is currently characterized by the ongoing geopolitical tensions, post-pandemic challenges, supply chain issues, and rising inflation. There have been recent reports of diesel shortage and severely depleted distillate fuels inventories across North America, Europe, and Asia. The rapid resumption of passenger aviation as quarantine restrictions are lifted is also worsening the shortage because jet fuel comes from the same part of the refining stock as diesel. Shortages are affecting gasoline as refineries adjust their equipment and attempt to boost output of diesel and jet fuel, cutting into their ability to make gasoline. Sanctions and boycotts on petroleum export from Russia, a major exporter of distillate, especially to Europe, are reducing availability even further and intensifying upward pressure on fuel prices. Under the current deregulated regime in Ghana, where government is not responsible for determining the prices of petroleum products, particularly for gasoline, gas oil, and LPG, rises in petroleum products prices on the global market and the depreciation cost of Ghana's cedi against the US dollar are passed on directly to the end consumer. On the domestic front, the oil importers have to compete for forex in the open markets to import petroleum products, which they mostly get at very high rates. Since the exchange rate is a major component of the price of petroleum products in Ghana, its market behavior also reflects the significant price hikes. Measures in place by government to mitigate the effects of the price surge. Effective from 1st April 2022, government reduced margins in the petroleum price build-up by Ghana pesos 15 pesos per litre for the next 3 months. The details are as follows. 1. Bus margin is reduced by 2 pesos per litre. 2. Youth Pricing Fund, the UPPF margin, was reduced by 9 pesos per litre, and fuel marking margin reduced by 1 peso per litre. And finally, number 4, primary distribution margin reduced by 3 pesos per litre. To help stabilize the prices of petroleum products, the government instituted a temporary forest cover for oil imports through the Bank of Ghana. Upon implementation, this arrangement resulted in an immediate release of $190 million through an FX auction to bulk import distribution and export companies, that's a BIDEX, to assist them in clearing their letter of credits at that time. The forest cover is supposed to guarantee at least 50% of the forest demand required for product imports within the arrangement duration, thereby reducing the sector's exposure to market speculation. Currently, forest support from the Bank of Ghana is 30% based on available reserves. Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Member, any supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the Minister's response, they have already implemented, government has already implemented the 2 measures that he stated. One, to deal with the reduction in the margins, and the other also the forex effect. But still, we still experience continuous price increments in the petroleum products. I would like to know from the Minister if there are some other measures they intend to implement to help curb the situation, what we currently experience.
Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, and I'm glad the Honourable Member has acknowledged the steps that government has taken to reduce the burden on the good people of this country. But I would like the Honourable Member to also know that government has intensified NPA, the regulation, intensified its regulation of the PDCs and the OMCs. And indeed, since the deregulation, or as a result of the deregulation, the current price, the margins for the BDCs and the OMCs is actually lower than it was when the market was not regulated. So these are some of the steps that are being taken to make sure that the price don't go up more than necessary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Minister, because with issues of petroleum pricing margin, that is what the BDCs and OMCs are charging, it's mentioned that they've taken steps about with it. But as it stands now, I still keep asking that. One of the causes he mentioned was the international market prices, which currently keep rising or keep going up from the projections we have now. Yesterday, the international market price was 127 per barrel.
Honourable Member, if you want the opportunity to make a statement, we'll grant you. But this is question
Mr.
time.
Speaker, I would like to find out from the Minister if government has any plan of reducing the bust margin so that at least it will also help curb or reduce the prices we have at the pump. And also, Honourable Speaker, I want to find out from the Minister, bust, the role bust can play in this instance to help reduce the prices we have.
Now you have to choose which of the questions you want him to answer. Because it's a question at a time.
Honourable Speaker, I would like to find out from the Minister how bust, which is supposed to hold strategic stock, can help control the prices, especially from the international markets.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what government has done, the Honourable Member's basic question is to find out what we can do to reduce further the price of petroleum on the market. What step that government has taken is to encourage the international oil marketing companies to bring onshore their products. So we have excess tankage in the country right now, and we are encouraging them, and indeed they have started, encouraging them to do the job that BOST was hitherto doing by bringing these products onshore instead of leaving them offshore on tankers. And also, in addition to that, the government has given Lacan to the international oil company, marketing companies. Instead of giving Lacan to the BDCs, the Lacan has been transferred to the international oil marketing companies so that they can bring their product onshore without too much delay. And the resultant effect is guaranteed supply of products in country at all times. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honourable member, I still have the opportunity to ask another supplementary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to ask the minister, should Ghanaians brace themselves for continuous petroleum price increases, as we see the international market price going up each day and the cedi continuously depreciating against the dollar?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, it is a challenge. This is a worldwide phenomenon that is happening. And of course, the government is doing all it can. As I'm sure you know, the state cedi has been stabilized reasonably in the last several weeks. As opposed to what is happening as a result of the Ukraine war, we have very little to do about it. And all that we can all hope as people is to continue to hope that the steps that government has taken will continue to afford us enough supply of petroleum in this country, as opposed to what is happening in other countries around the world, where there are people are queuing and sleeping in filling stations for fuel. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I've just been given a copy of order paper addendum. I want to know from leaders whether you want us to ask a question there to what we already have for today. Have you got copies of the order paper addendum? Well, let me then discharge the Deputy Minister. Well, I didn't really see you up. Okay. Minister, there's one more supplementary question for you. A lot. Majority Leader.
I'm saying that the minister responsible for energy has so many questions to answer today. So looks like all the questions are for him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes, so we just want to finish the urgent question.
Yes.
Then we can proceed to the rest.
We can proceed to the others. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to manage the
so
time.
So we want the 314 to be part of today's questions. The question on the other people addendum.
Yes,
I don't have it. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the others, all the others are on electricity. They are on electricity. I don't see why we should take that one out of 10. The first one, which is an urgent question, relates to petroleum, which has been taken. So we can go on with the others, and then when we exhaust it, we'll come to the one on the addendum order paper.
Yes, let me just solve this before I come to you. The question number 314 is even on the original order paper. But I'm told that because the answer to the question is not captured in the original order paper, they were compelled to do order paper addendum. So it's the same question, and therefore it will be asked and answered. Yes, with this we can continue with the yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, from the answer provided by the Minister, we know that the Ukraine war started in February 2022. But in 2021, we saw 17 different petrol price hikes. Would he agree that, or would he explain that the poor performance of the Ghana cedi in 2021, that has continued in this year, 2022, has been more of a contributory factor to the increasing price of fuel, vis-a-vis the almost 40%. If the Deputy Minister finishes the whispering, then he needs to pay attention to my question. Vis-a-vis the 40% tax component that makes up the build-up of our price. Agreed, because here you've given FX as one of the reasons. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Chief Whip, I've seen you on your
Speaker, I want my colleague to avert his mind to Order 69.1. Speaker, in this chamber, Speaker, you have often admonished us to read the orders and apply ourselves to the orders. Speaker, with your permit, I want to read it to his hearing. 69.1 says, as soon as a question is answered in the House, any member beginning with the member who asks the question may, without notice, ask a supplementary question for further elucidation of any matter of fact regarding which the answer has been given. Speaker, the emphasis, supplementary question must not be used to introduce matter not included in the original question. My colleague, Speaker, if you read the text of the urgent question and you compare the text, the thrust of the text of the question to what he was speaking to, he's making reference to prices of CD and all that. It's not relevant, and therefore, Speaker, he's falling foul of the orders. And Speaker, I implore you to rule him out and probably give you another chance to ask a question that conforms to the orders.
Well, I listened to the Deputy Minister carefully, and he actually added that aspect in the answer. He talked initially about COVID-19. He also added the issue of the depreciation of the cedi, and then also the war in Ukraine. So he added that to the answer, and therefore I did not see how a supplementary question will arise from it again. And now he was trying to, because the way you phrase the question, that will he explain that it's also because of the depreciation of the cedi. He has already explained that that has contributed. So there is no need for you to ask him the same question again. You have the opportunity to ask a supplementary, but not this one.
Thank you for the guidance, Mr. Speaker, but I think that this establishes the fact that I avert myself to the standing orders better than the Majority Chief Whip. But based on the guidance from Mr. Speaker, the price hikes that we have seen, would you agree that the poor performance of the cedi and the 40% tax component in the price buildup attributes
for the hikes we have seen over the period. The tax component in the price buildup. Would you agree?
Yes, Majority Leader.
Let's be again, our rules are clear. Order 68(5) imposes an obligation on a member who wants to ask any question. And I should read for his elucidation. No member shall address the House upon any question, nor in asking the question shall any argument or opinion be offered. Mr. Speaker, what he's saying, his own opinion, is arguing his case. And that cannot be allowed in this House. Mr. Speaker, I will urge you to rule that question out of order.
I will not take it that he has offered an opinion. He just wants the minister either to agree or disagree. And so that is all. Will you agree that this is so? I think that is quite harmless. Minister can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Respectfully, I do not agree with my honorable colleague.
He disagrees with his opinion, so he's entitled as a minister to disagree with him. Yes, please, let's move to item 6 now. Questions. We have a number of them, and we'll start with question number 305, who stands in the name of the honorable member for Bongo, Honorable Edward Abambire Bawa. Please, honorable member, you may ask your question now. Yes, please.
Right Honorable Speaker, I would want to seek your leave to ask the question on behalf of the Member of Parliament whose authority I have to seek your leave to ask the question.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't understand that one. You cannot have his authority to seek leave. You can have his authority to ask the question on his behalf, but not to seek leave from the Speaker.
I am duly guided, Right Honorable Speaker, and may you live long to continue to teach us, and I do so accordingly.
Now, leave is granted. You may ask the question on his behalf.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Energy when the rural electrification projects in the following communities will be completed: Awa Akalisum, Nayorigo Asaboko, Asasiboko, Amanga Kulbenko, Asabo Tua, Zoriko Go, Atung Tua, and Lungo.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the communities, namely Awa Akalisum, Nayorigo Asasiboko, Yeriko Gwao, and Lungo, form part of the Ministry of Energy's ongoing Shop 4 rural electrification program in the Bongo district of the Upper East region. 36 out of 48 high voltage poles required for the Awa Akalisum and Nayorigo Asasiboko communities have been supplied to the site. Most of the required pole top materials have been supplied to Awa Akalisum with 36 strand and transformer installed. The high voltage network passes through Zoriko Go and Lungo communities. 460 out of 660 low voltage poles required for the project for Awa Akalisum, Nayorigo Asasiboko, Zoriko Go, and Lungu communities have been supplied and planted. Most of the pole top accessories required for the communities have been supplied to site with dressing, that is installation, ongoing in Awa Akalisum, Akalium, and Lungo. The delays in the execution of the electrification projects are as a result of shortage of some key materials, including poles, steel, wooden blocks, conductors, amongst others. The ministry has taken delivery of some of these materials and is arranging for the release of same for installation works to resume at site. The Ministry of Energy expects to complete the installation works in the above-mentioned communities by the end of the year. The Amanga, Kurbenko, Asagbo, Tua, communities do not form part of the ministry's electrification project. These communities have been noted and will be considered for connection to the national electricity grid in subsequent phases of the electricity program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Honorable Member, you did not mention the last name, Atung Tua. Atung Tua. So what happens about that one? You mentioned only two. The last paragraph, you only mentioned Amanga, Kulbenko, and Asabgo Tua. But you forgot to mention Atung Tua.
Forgive me, Mr. Speaker. Let me take the last paragraph again, then, please, if I may. The Amanga, Kalbunko, Asagbo Tua, and Atung Tua communities do not form part of the ministry's electrification projects, and these communities have been noted and will be considered for connection to the national electricity grid in subsequent phases of the electrification program, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member, any supplementary?
Honorable Minister, for the Awa Akalisum and Nayorigo Asasiboko communities, you stated that 36 out of 48 high voltage poles have been provided. When are the communities going to get the outstanding 12? And what timelines would you give for delivery of those poles and the other materials that you said were previously short in supply?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these materials, I mentioned some conductors, poles, and others which have not been supplied. Just like these ones, the high voltage poles, as soon as we take delivery, we will send them to the project site. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the minister for a timeline. He didn't give. However, I want to find out, can he also give us a timeline on the other three communities that are not part of this project, the Amanga, Kulbenko, Asabgo Tua, and Atung Tua? Do you have any indication when the next SHEP project or government intervention will start?
Yes, Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of my honorable colleague, I actually did give that the timeline that by the end of the year, we will finish the projects that are ongoing. As far as the remaining communities are concerned, that is Amanga, Kulbenko, Asagbo Tua, and Atung Tua, what happens at the ministries, we do compile the requests that come in and source for funding, and then initiate the project. So as soon as we have enough, and then the funding comes into the place, we will include that and then publish it for the benefit of consideration of the Honorable House. Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Members, I thought you finished. Okay, the last one, the third supplementary.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Taking the poles and materials you've mentioned to the community does not connect the community to the grid. We have several communities that have poles and things there but have not been connected. When would you connect those communities to the grid?
The question is specific to the communities itemized in the question. If you are talking about other communities that are not part of the question, you are introducing something new. But if you are talking about the communities that are mentioned in the question, let's know those communities that have the polls and nothing has been done.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. We want to find out when Awa Akalisum, Nayorigo Asasi Boko, Zoriko Go, and Lungo will be connected to the national grid.
The understanding is that they already have the poles and materials, but they are not connected. That is how he premised his question.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a little bit challenged by this question because I have stated quite clearly that these materials and the installation works in the above communities will be completed by the end of the year. When we say completed by the end of the year, it means connected to the grid by the end of the year. That's what yes.
Yes, this is constituency-specific question. So we'll move on to question 309. Stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Kretchi East, Honourable Wisdom Gidisu. Honourable Member, you may ask your question now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy what step the ministry is taking to replace the wooden electric poles which carry high tension wires to the Kretchi East municipality with better poles to prevent perennial burning of these wooden poles during the dry season. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must commend my honourable friend for the outfit to ask his question. He's looking very sharp.
Honourable Minister, you are completely out of order.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. The replacement of the wooden electricity poles, or for that matter, any measure of to address the perennial burning of such poles falls under the purview of the utility company. In this jurisdiction, the ECG. As part of measures to address perennial burning of wood poles, ECG has commenced a pilot project to spray vulnerable poles with fire-resistant paint. To this end, selected high-voltage poles on the Dambai feeder, that's from Asuk Koko to Dambai, have been sprayed with the fire-resistant paint. Furthermore, ECG continues to create fire belts to protect poles from bushfires. The ministry, in its effort to deal with these issues, has also been deploying steel and concrete poles to bushfire-prone areas for the ongoing national electrification scheme. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member, any further question? Supplementary
Thank
question?
you, Mr. Speaker. I want to find out from the Honourable Minister whether spraying these poles with fire-resistant paints provides permanent solution to this problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Essentially, the answer to that question is yes. Because by spraying these poles with the fire-resistant, and the whole idea is to try and protect them in case of bushfire going anywhere near this particular pole. So the answer is yes, to provide permanent solution to the problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then, if so, when do they intend to end the pilot project for its rollout in other constituencies? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, did you get the supplementary question? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ordinarily, when pilot projects are ensued, after the pilot and if it's successful, in this case we hope it's going to be successful because it's been tested before, then there will be the rollout of all the affected poles. So we hope that now that, or as soon as the pilot project is over, ECG will roll out the whole project to affect others that were not in the pilot vicinity. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We'll move on to question number 311. And this question stands in the name of the honorable member for Wulensi, Honorable Abukari Dawuli. Honorable member, you may ask your question now.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister of Energy when the electrification projects in the following communities in the Wulensi constituency will resume and be completed: Sakwe, Gungune, Kapo, Bangdeyele, and Asafuche.
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, is it 312 that you just asked? Question number 312. 312.
Question 311. We don't have the answer on the order paper, but you may have the answer. So it's not captured on the order paper.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, please bear with me for just a few moments.
Honorable members, in filling the forms, be careful as to the boxes that you mark.
Mr. Speaker, my technical people have just signaled me that we don't really have the answer to 311. I don't think it actually came to the ministry for us to answer. It's not amongst the questions that we answered.
That's why I'm drawing the attention of members to the form. If you marked oral, it's different from when you mark the other one, which is to be answered on the floor. Yes. Any further information on it? If not, we'll flag it to be asked another day.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, respectfully, that particular question was not amongst the questions that were brought to us for answering.
Table office, take note and submit it for. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard you direct table to take note. Then how come it was scheduled and how come it was advertised for the Minister for Energy to respond to it?
It's all still in the jurisdiction of the table office. You realize that they even submitted order paper addendum. Because that question too was on the order paper, but the answer was not there. And so they realized it and then brought an addendum. So the problem with the table office, if you need assistance, let me know so that we can strengthen your office to be able to up your game. So we'll move on with apologies to the honorable member. The honorable member from Wulensi. Your question will be rescheduled to be answered another day. Our apologies. We'll move on to question number 312. The question stands in the name of the honorable member for New Ejubiase, Honorable Adams Abdul Salam. Please, honorable member, you may ask your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for the Minister for Energy when the following communities in the New Ejubiase constituency will be connected to the national grid. Suminem, Abuabu number 3, Amenaso, Maweko, Monyo Krum, Dakozi, Achukrum, Zoiku, and Aboye Obuasi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Abuabu number 3, Amina So and Dakozi communities in the new Edubiasi constituency have been earmarked for electrification under the ministry's ongoing electrification project being executed by China International Water and Electric Corporation. Phase 2 in the Volta, Eastern Ashanti, Brong Ahafo, that's now Bono East and Ahafo, and then the western regions. The delay in completion of the works by the contractor is as a result of delays in obtaining Sino-Sure guarantee from the Chinese government. Suminam Mawoko Moniokrom, Achukrom, Zori Iku, and Aboya Obuase communities do not form part of any of the ministry's ongoing electrification projects. The communities have been noted for consideration in subsequent phases of electrification program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the minister if he could shed a little light on the Sino-Sure guarantee and when that will be secured to enable the ministry and connect these communities to the national grid. Thank you.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this particular problem with Sino-Sure is really a high-level thing that is being discussed between the two governments, that's the Ghana government and the Chinese government. And I really cannot stand here and give any indication as to when the impasse will be resolved. I'm not able to give that answer, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Member, any further supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to find out if beyond the Sino-Sure guarantee, there are any other plans to, make sure that some of these communities are connected in the shortest possible time. Thank you.
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are quite confident as a ministry that this problem will be resolved. It's just unfortunate that I cannot give you the time. And we rather not start tinkering with these communities as far as electrification is concerned. So I'll indulge you. I'll ask you to indulge us by talking to your people to have patience for this particular problem to be solved. And as you probably are aware, when these projects come into being, they go rather faster than if the ministry does it itself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My final supplementary will be on the communities that do not form part of the ongoing, yes. Sominem, Maweko, Monyokrum, Achukrum, Zoiku, and Aboye Obuasi. Mr. Speaker, would the minister assure us that these communities would be considered in any plans?
Are you
going forward?
asking a different question?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm just following up on his answer that these communities do not form part of any of the plans as we speak. And I just need an assurance that
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, once the ministry has taken note of this request from the honourable member, in fullness of time, they will be included in our subsequent projects. Thank you.
What does that mean? In the fullness of time. What does that mean when you say in the fullness of time?
Mr. Speaker, if that phrase is creating problems, I'll withdraw it and I'll replace it by saying that as and when the ministry compile the list and source of necessary funding, those communities will be considered for electrification.
Minority leader, because you are leader, I'll allow you, but if not, this is constituency specific.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief. Is to the Honourable Minister's response to the Honourable Adams Abdul Salam. What the Honourable Member wants from the Minister is an assurance that those communities will be prioritized and prioritized within time, not within the fullness of time. So what next self-help rural electrification project will those communities fall under? Thank you.
Minority leader, he has actually attempted in answering that question. It's only subject to or conditional upon the availability of funds, as he stated. It's when they get funds and then they program. So, in other words, he's not in the position to give assurance or guarantee. That is what he stated. And so we'll move on to question number 314. And the question stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Tamale South, Honourable Suhini Al-Hassan Saibu.
Right, Honourable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. However,
Honourable Members,
my shoe size.
Second Deputy Speaker to take the chair. Yes, go on.
Right, Honourable Speaker, I just wanted to draw your attention that my feet cannot wear the shoes of the Tamale South Member of Parliament yet, so I'll still maintain the Tamale North.
Did I say Tamale South?
Yes, sir.
Majority Leader, Minority Leader has been because he just asked a supplementary question.
Thank you.
No, you are saying Tamale North.
Yes, I'll maintain Tamale North. That's one
I know where you belong
complete.
to. You are not even qualified to contest in Tamale South.
My Chalewati can go to Tamale South.
Yes, Tamale North.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. The Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy how much kilowatts or megawatts of power was generated by each of the following entities between 2017 and 2020, for which the government of Ghana could not utilize and therefore was billed and paid $937.5 million to 1 AXA, 2 Car Power, and 3 Cent Power. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the excess capacities from the 3 companies, namely AXA, Car Power, and Cent Power, range approximately between 124 megawatts and 442 megawatts for the period 2017 to 2020. The breakdown is as per the table below. The unit is megawatts, of course, and in 2017, AXA, we paid for 54.2 megawatts, 2018, 90.3 megawatts, and 2019, 207.9 megawatts, and 2020, 175.3 megawatts. For car power ship, we paid the capacity, excess capacity, in 2017, 69.5 megawatts, 2018, 116 megawatts, 2019, 145.2 megawatts, and 2020, 48.5 megawatts. And Mr. Speaker, finally, for Send Power, we paid for only 2 years, that's 88.5 megawatts in 2019 and 146.6 megawatts for 2020. Mr. Speaker, perhaps I may take this opportunity to explain to my honorable colleague that this is not actually power that has been generated, like generated for storage or anything of that sort. What it is, once the company declares availability and we are not able to take the power, then we pay the capacity. So that is what it is. It's not like they generated for us to pay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Member for Tamale North.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I wish to thank the Minister for his response. The Speaker, I, however, before my follow-up, would just like to take note of the answer that is provided in range when I ask for the total. The range is not provided, and even in the answer that I have on the other paper, the table did not indicate the companies and the megawatts declared. But I haven't listened to the Minister has been able to provide the names of the companies, and I'll work with the documents, even though I would have preferred that we got the total for each and how much we pay. Mr. Speaker, I want the Minister to explain how come AXA declared in his own answer 527 megawatts in 4 years. Car Power declared 378.5 megawatts in 4 years as excess capacity, and Send Power declared 235 megawatts. Yet, the Speaker, AXA that declared 527 megawatts got paid $347.2 million US. And this is based on an answer that was provided by the Minister of Finance in this House. So it's a record of this House. How come AXA that declared 527 megawatts got paid $347 million US? Yet, Car Power that declared 378 megawatts also got paid $359 million US. The company that declared less got paid more. How can the Minister explain that? Should I repeat it?
Minister, did you get the question?
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. The figures and the information that the Honourable Member has put before this august House is not before me. I don't have any such information in front of me, so I'm unable to respond to it.
Very well. So, Honourable Member, did you hear him?
Mr. Speaker, I did not put any figures that are not before him. Mr. Speaker, when I rose up, I made the reference to the fact that the answers were provided in range, and the answers didn't come with the names of the companies and how much power they declared. But thanks to the answer that he gave, he told us in column 1, AXA declared 54 megawatts in 2017, correct? Is that not there? 2018, 90 megawatts, it's right here. And that in 2019, they declared 207 megawatts, Mr. Speaker. And in 2020, AXA declared 173. Mr. Speaker, if you put that together, if you add that, you have 527 megawatts for AXA. So that is record that he just provided. The numbers, the figures is what you just provided. AXA declared 527, according to the records you have provided. And Car Power declared, if you take 69.5 plus 116 plus 145.2 plus 48.5. If you add that to, you get 378 megawatts, 378.5 megawatts. So my question is, Mr. Speaker, and in my answer, I quoted the amount that was paid. I mean, in my question, 937 million, that is not in question, it's here. That was paid to these companies. And I'm saying when you look at the breakdown of the 937, we're told that AXA was paid 347 million US dollars. And Car Power was paid 359 million US dollars. But the megawatts shows that AXA actually declared more megawatts, 527 megawatts. Yet they were paid $347 million. And Car Power declared 378 megawatts. Yet the records here shows that they were paid 359 million US dollars. So my question is, how come the company that declared less excess capacity power got paid more? Thank you.
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the honourable member has given us figures which are not before me. But the only thing I can say, the amount of money that has been paid, no, please, have patience. The amount of money that you claim have been paid to certain companies are not before us today, sitting here. Those figures are not before us. But what I will say is that it may well be due to the difference in tariffs. So a company may generate 10 megawatts, company B may generate 10 megawatts, but if the tariffs are different, naturally, the payment will be different. Simplicity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the minister is answering a question with all the figures that were provided in that question, yet he claims that the figures are not with him. If you read my question, the figures are right there in my question, and that is what he was answering. Anyway, I will move on to my next follow-up. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the minister how excess power is declared and verified by the Ministry of Energy before request for payment is transmitted to the Finance Ministry. How do the companies declare excess power, which is available, for which you have not used, for which we have not used, and before they transmit to the Finance Ministry for payment to be given to these companies?
Minister, did you get a question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did, but I honestly think the honourable member doesn't really understand what is going on here. What happens is, a company declares availability. Once they declare the availability and ECG is not able to take up that power which is available, then they do the calculation, the amount of power that should have been taken which was not taken. And they do the calculation based on the tariff, and then they bill ECG. That is what happened. So I think you have to get the thing sorted out in your mind. You are totally all over the place.
Honorable, your last question.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the minister should not assume that because he works in the energy ministry, he's the only one sees with knowledge of how that sector works. Mr. Speaker,
go ahead with
I'm very aware that these companies declare the availability, which one will not utilize is recorded. So my question was a simple one. When the power is available, or when they say they have the capacity to produce, what are the verification methods that are used to indicate that indeed it is available and we have not used it, for which we have to pay? That's the simple question that I asked. If the minister doesn't have an answer to it, or if he doesn't understand the question, he should say so. But to impugn that I don't understand it is unfair. Thank you. I'll move on to my next question though. If he doesn't understand it, he can say so. But to say that I don't understand the sector is unfair. Mr. Speaker, the final, based on your answers, Honorable Minister, which one is the true one?
He's asking his last question.
Which one is true, Leader? Based on your answers provided, Mr. Speaker, and the answers that were provided by the Finance Minister related to this same question on Thursday, 17th June 2021, which remains a record of this House. Is it true or false that Ghana pays $1 billion annually as excess capacity charges?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. That is false. The figure he just quoted, 1 billion, is false. Thank you.
He says 1 billion is false. I've repeated his response. He says it's false. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, following up to a question asked by my colleague in the same context on payments made to IPPs, I'm aware of the price waterfall mechanism. Cash waterfall mechanism. Can the minister tell Ghanaians what government has done with the cash waterfall mechanism in sanitizing payments to the IPPs? Is he able to tell us?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, hitherto, ECG had the sole right to pay the IPPs and other service providers in the energy space as they deem fit. But because of the ESRP that has come into stay, the cash waterfall mechanism is a system whereby all the receivables for ECG goes into a basket and is shared to the fuel providers, IPPs, and other players within the energy space. So it's a very fair way of paying the players in the energy space. And the Ministry of Finance came up with a plan they call the Delta Fund, which will basically means that the Ministry of Finance will provide the shortfall. Anytime there is a shortfall in the payments to the IPPs, Ministry of Finance will provide that money through the Delta Fund. And I can tell the good people of this country that the cash waterfall mechanism is come to stay. It is a very fair mechanism for paying something to all the players in the energy space. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So, Honorable Leader, this supplementary question, you wouldn't have 2 slots. I'm taking only one more. We are not supposed to spend more than 1 hour in question time. So, let me give the opportunity to the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to find out from the Minister, is that the case that every year excess capacity keeps on increasing? I'm looking at it from the table here. In 2017, we had 123.7 megawatts as excess capacity. 2018, we have 216.3 megawatts of excess capacity, and 2019 it shot up to 441.6 megawatts. Before 2020, it came down slightly to 370.4 megawatts. Meanwhile, we keep on connecting new communities every day, or if you like, every time? How come we are having so much of excess capacity each and every year? Thank you.
You didn't get a question. Honorable members, at times I haven't. Please go straight to the question so that the minister can appreciate the question.
Mr. Speaker, from the table provided here, if the minister will want to take a look at it, I'm wondering why every subsequent year, excess capacity keeps on increasing. If you look at the table, in 2017, we generated 123.7 as an excess capacity. In 2018, we generated 216.3 as an excess capacity. And 2019, 441.6 as an excess capacity. And 2020, 370.3 as excess capacity. How come every year it keeps on increasing? We are keeping on having excess capacity every year. Why is it so? Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it simply means that in 2019, we just did not need 441.6 potential energy. We just didn't need it, but it was available. That is basically what it means. As to why it's going up, it's maybe because of the agreements that were signed under, without wanting to sound too political, under your time. They signed so many take-or-pay agreements, and that is what's resulted in this. So basically, it means that the quantities that you are talking about, the 441 and the 370, simply means that these energy, megawatts of energy was available to us that we did not need. Cheers.
Okay, let him give you the last one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister or the deputy minister, in his response to a question posed by the Honorable Member of Parliament for Salaga Etamale North, said it's false that the state has not paid $1 million annually, $1 billion annually in excess, in respect of the excess capacity generated. And I want to find out from the minister, in the Vice President's last lecture to Ghanaians, he stated categorically that an amount of $1 billion was paid annually. And today the minister is saying it's not true. I want us to find out from the minister which of them we should believe. Is it the case that they've not advised the Vice President very well? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I am not standing here able to confirm the source of Honourable Member's figure that is just given to the House. The Honourable Suhini asked if we pay in 1 billion, but on the 17th June, when the Finance Minister came before this House, he quoted a figure of $968 million, not 1 billion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. We move to question number 605. Question number 605. And the question stands in the name of a member for Nsawam Aduajiri, Honorable Frank Anodompre. Honorable, you may ask.
Speaker, I'm grateful. So I rise to ask the Minister for Energy how the government, through the ministry, settled the debt-owned Nigeria Gas Company through the Energy Sector Levies Act, the ASLA. Thank you, Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, between March 2018 to July 2019, the Government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Energy and the Energy Sector Levies Act, ESLA PLC, settled a total amount of 563,452,668 Ghana cedis in 3 tranche payments to the Nigerian Gas Company Limited, NGAS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, we know the VRA has existed for a very long time. I wish to know from the Minister what role did the VRA play in the settlement of this debt?
Yes, Minister. Any role played by VRA?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that VRA in the last several years has really improved their balance sheet. And as a result, VRA has been able to settle this legacy debt. And I would like to point out to the honorable member asking this question that subsequently VRA has been able to pay their bills to, or the obligation to, NGAS as and when due. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, I wish to find out from my Minister what correlation exists between the payment of this debt or its management and the control of power outages, popularly called Dumso.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, virtually all the power generators, generating machines in Ghana are now being fueled by natural gas. So naturally, if the VRA is able to pay for its obligation to NGAS, the supply of natural gas from Nigeria, I would say that it goes a long way in ameliorating the power situation in Ghana, thereby preventing Dumso, as the honorable member puts it. Thank you.
Yes, your last supplementary question, Honorable Chief Whip.
So I want to know from my colleague and the Minister whether it is the case currently under the guise of this government that when bills are raised in the context of this ASLA, they are cleared accordingly. If it is the case, can the Minister apprise this House and the Ghanaian people? What is it that this government is doing differently from the previous government?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, really the Volta River Authority, under the able leadership of Mr. Nchidakwa, has, like I said earlier, improved markedly on their balance sheet, and as a result, they are able to, like I said earlier again, able to pay for the gas supply to Ghana as and when due. So it goes a long way in, or shall I say, VRA is doing a very good job in polishing their balance sheet, thereby being able to pay for their bills. Thank you very much.
Leader, let me, then I'll come to you. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like the Minister to tell us whether he will still consider the energy sector levy as a nuisance tax. A nuisance tax, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, this question is not admissible.
Okay, let me change it. Let me rephrase my question.
Okay. You may change it.
I would like to ask the minister if he will consider the energy sector levy as very useful in the management of our debt, the energy sector.
Minister, let's hear you.
Okay, Mike.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, ESLA PLC is good for us in the payment of our bills to NGAS.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
Mr. Speaker, so after all, the energy sector levies have proven to be useful in supporting government to pay for some capacities. Mr. Speaker, the Minister in his answer on excess capacity has provided the distribution for the last 4 years, whether in respect of ASCA or car power or send power, provided some details. Does the excess capacity include reserve margin or not? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Yes, the excess capacity indeed includes the reserve margin.
Mr. Speaker, will the Minister be interested in undertaking an audit of the excess capacity?
Leader, it's just a supplementary question, so one slot. No, he was the owner of the question. You get the opportunity to. Yes, Honorable Member for BM.
Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Minister whether he will consider doing a detailed audit in terms of what is actually the excess capacity.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would have thought this would be in the purview of the Finance Ministry, since they've been paying the money. So I will direct this question to the Ministry of Finance. And thank you.
Very well. We move to. Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to find out from the Minister if the revenue accrued from ESLA has contributed in paying the legacy debt. Thank you.
A similar question has already been asked. And he said the ESLA is a very useful ESLA. So we move to question number 814. Question number 814. And the question stands the member for Upper Denchira West. Upper Denchira West, Honorable Daniel Ohenedako. Honorable, you may now ask your question.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, before I ask the question, I seek your leave to make a little correction to the question. That is paragraph 4, item III. The name should be Eniantintem, not Ananikrom. I have Ananikrom as one of the communities, but the actual community should have been Eniantintem. That really needs the project. So in the answer, Ananikrom was not taken care of because they don't have it as one of those communities. So in my answer, in my question, I'm going to deal with the 4 communities and leave the other one because that's not been provided for. So to the Minister, Honorable Minister, I rise to ask you, the Minister for Energy, when the self-help electrification project
that is SHEP, in the following communities will be completed. So, Adwinpaye, Akrofrom, Abuaboso, and Nipa Nikro. Thank you, Right Honourable.
Very well. Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Adwinpaye, Akrofrom, Abuaboso, and Nipa Nikro communities are part of the Ministry's ongoing SHEP 4 rural electrification projects in the central region. 72 out of the 107 high voltage poles required for the project have been supplied to site. 19 of the high voltage poles have so far been planted in the communities. The remaining 53 poles are yet to be planted. 120 low voltage poles required for Adwinpaye, Akrofrom, Abuaboso, and Nipa Nikro communities have been supplied to site but are yet to be planted. The delay in the execution of the electrification projects in the communities is as a result of shortage of some key materials, including stay equipment, conductors, poles, amongst others. The ministry has taken delivery of some of the materials and is arranging for the release of same for installation works to resume at site. The Ministry of Energy expects to complete the installation works in the above-mentioned communities by the end of the year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Hindako, any supplementary question?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I want to ask the Minister whether he is aware that the materials that have been supplied so far have been there for the last 6 years. If he is aware of the fact.
Minister, are you aware?
Mr. Speaker, I really am not aware, but now that the Honourable Member has mentioned it, we will take note and look into it, whether it's the contractor who has abandoned the contract or whatever, and the necessary steps will be taken to rectify the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Ohinedako.
Honourable Minister, you indicated in your answer that you have secured the materials that will really go to execute the project. And you have indicated that it's going to take up to the end of the year. You have all these materials available. Why is it going to take you that long to be able to fix these projects?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member just alerted us that the materials are lying there without a contractor on site. You just said that. And I've assured you that we've taken note and we take the necessary steps. But I don't quite understand why you were following up by saying that the materials are lying there without any work going on. I don't quite get it.
Yes, Honourable, your last question.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that these materials were supplied to site somewhere in 2016, and they've been lying there. Some of the conductors have been there at the mercy of the weather. So what I'm saying is that you have said in your answer that you have secured all the materials to be able to carry out the project. So why is it going to take you that long? I've had.
Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'll try and answer the Honourable Member's question by saying that normally when contractors are on site and they need materials, they request the materials. And that will prompt us to supply the materials that are required if we have them in stock. But in this particular case, you've made it quite clear to us that there's no contractor on site. So again, for the, I'm sorry, I'm having to repeat myself, that we have taken note. We're going to go on site and then make sure that the work progresses. By if we need to engage a new contractor, that is if the other one has left the scene, then we will do that. So I don't know why we are belabeling this particular point, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
We now move to Binduri. Honorable Abdullahi Abanga, question 820. Question 820. A member for Binduri, is he not around? Oh, yes. My brother, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Energy when the electrification projects under the Shed 4 program in the following communities in the Binduri district of the Upper East region will be completed. Sakwar Natenga, Sakwar Bakango, and Sakwar Wanyamiri. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Sakwari Natinga, Sakwari Bakango, and Sakwari Wayamere communities are part of the Ministry of Energy's ongoing Shed 4 electrification project in the Binduri district of the Upper East region. A total of 47 high-voltage poles required for the communities have been supplied and planted. The high-voltage installation works have been completed as Sakwari Natinga, Sakwari Bakango, and Sakwari Wayamere communities. 455 low-voltage poles for the project have been supplied and planted in Sakwari Natinga, Sakwari Bakango, and Sakwari Wayamere communities. However, conductors for the LV stringing in Sakwari Natinga are yet to be supplied. Stringing of the high-voltage conductors has also been completed in these communities. While the transformers have been delivered to the communities, installation is yet to be done. Meter installations works are ongoing in Sakwari Bakango. The delay in the execution of the electrification project in the communities are due to the shortage of some key materials. The ministry has taken delivery of some of these materials and will arrange for them to be sent to site for work to resume. The Ministry of Energy expects to complete the installation works in the above-mentioned communities by the end of this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Abanga, any supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my contact with the contractor indicates that they will require more material than what the minister just indicated here. So I pray that the minister will contact the contractor on the ground and provide them with all the necessary materials. And we hope that by the end of this year, the people of these three committees will benefit from the national grid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to the last question. The last question, which is from Old Tafo, Honorable Vincent Ekwao Asafua, question number 858. 858. Yes, Honorable, you may ask your question now.
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker. I would want to ask the Minister for Energy when the Ameri plant is scheduled to be transferred to Kumasi.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the 250 megawatt Ameri power plant will be moved to Ahumaso in Kumasi 6 months after signing of the APC contract. Thank you.
Yes. Honorable Member for Tafo, any supplementary question?
Most grateful, Mr. Speaker. I want to know when the EPC contract will be signed.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has engaged a company by the name of Miscellaneous SA to undertake the engineering, that's the EPC contract. The works are expected to be pre-financed by this company. And we have sought the opinion, legal opinion from the Attorney General's office that has been obtained and been incorporated in the draft contract. So prior to this, the ministry had obtained a PPA approval to sole source this particular company. And the ministry is expected to seek parliamentary approval for the relocation of the plant where the EPC work will begin. The contractor estimates that the EPC work would take approximately 6 months after the EPC contract is signed. The ministry and the Attorney General are in the process of fine-tuning the contract, and as soon as all the T's and the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, we will bring it to the House for approval, and then 6 months afterwards, the machine will be moved to Kumasi. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think I have.
Very well. Honorable Deputy Minister for Energy, on behalf of the House, let me thank you very much for attending upon the House to answer as many as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions. Honorable Deputy Minister, we are grateful to you. We wish you well. You are hereby discharged. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, I guess we should be going on to statements, and 2 statements were admitted by Speaker. But before then, Speaker, with your leave, if we could just take item 8B at conclave. We had some gentleman agreement with my colleague, the minority whip, that we would take, we'll take item 8B, Speaker, on 8B for Bell, 8B. So I'll seek your leave to do the laying on behalf of the chair.
Is it that of trade and tourism? Honorable members, may I invite you to page number 5, page 5, item 8, presentation of papers. We will move to 8B, chairman of the committee. Honorable, hold on. I table, hold on.
Mr. Speaker, I ordinarily, once is the whip who is undertaking this activity, I should honor and respect it. But Parliament is its committees. If the chairman of the committee is not there, you can opt for the vice chairman or any member of the committee, but not to encourage the practice of those of us in leadership purporting to be acting on behalf of the committee. It is not a good parliamentary practice. Maybe for purpose of today, we can accommodate it. Just look around. Any member of the trade committee can so lay the report. I don't want us to encourage the practice where leaders will tomorrow want to do and perform functions on behalf of the leadership and members of the committees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. So, any member of Trade and Tourism Committee?
Speaker, with respect, I understand and respect the position of the leader. We have a situation, and I communicated duly to the whip, and that is what motivated my decision. So we had arrived at that conclusion earlier. Unfortunately, my respected leader was not there. So if he may just accede, and he said it in passing, I will not do that to take away powers of committee leaders. So
very well.
there's an
Hold on. Let me find out if there's any member of a trade committee. Any member? The ranking? Yes. Trade and tourism. Okay, leader. If there's nobody, then let me ask the chief whip to do that on behalf of the committee.
Report of the Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism on the Ghana Standards Authority Bill 2022.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to spare the whip so that he would understand. As soon as a paper is presented to the House, you are to direct that it be distributed. So direct. And when you direct and it's not available for distribution, would have been embarrassing you as our whip. That is why I don't want you to play this role. So yes, he's laid it. Give the consequential directive and table act. Act now. Let's have copies of the report as laid. Thank you. In respecting our standing orders.
Ready.
Speaker, I think in these matters, I want to respect my colleague. I did not, on my own, decided to lay this paper. I think in this house, we've always related to one another in this matter. I had related to the minority whip. We have come to an understanding. If it's the case that it should be withdrawn, we can withdraw it. We can stand it down and wait for the committee chair to come and lay it. There's no problem.
Leader, respectfully, I think the report will be distributed in due time. So, yes. So, honorable members, the report has been duly presented and is for distribution to honorable members.
Speaker, with your leave, before we go on to statements, we will want to take item 11 on page 6. Item 11.
Honorable members, let me once again invite you to page 6. Page 6, item 11. Page 6, item 11. Motion, Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that this Honorable House adopts the report of the Finance Committee on guidelines for considering and approving requests for the grant of waiver of import duties, import VAT, Get Fund Levy, import National Health Insurance Levy, ECOWAS Levy, AU Levy, EXIM Levy on plant, machinery and equipment or parts, as well as corporate tax for 5 years of operation, being tax incentives to support implementation of the One District, One Factory program. Mr. Speaker, in moving this motion, I would like to present the committee's report. Mr. Speaker, you may recall that somewhere last year, we came to this House with report for the exemption 1B1 exemption for some 4 companies, and the House debated the taking of the report and complained that we were recommending too many of these exemptions to the House. We did make the point, and I made that point on behalf of the committee, that the committee itself had done some work in respect of these 1D, 1F exemptions, and that we have been guided by our own guidelines. And therefore, the House should feel comfortable approving those 4. But the House then took a decision that they would want to themselves see those guidelines before they would proceed to approve any 1D, 1F exemption. The committee therefore went back and sought to comply with the decision of the House. That has taken quite some time because we also needed to engage with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and other stakeholders in order that the guidelines that this House would approve would be consistent with our appreciation of the 1D, 1F policy and also in the spirit of working together. That is what has kept this report from coming, that has seen the delay that we have seen in the report. But thankfully, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to come to some consensus on what these guidelines should be in respect of what we present to this House for the House to consider adopt, so that the pile of 1D, 1F requests at both the Ministry of Finance and at the committee can be cleared as quickly as possible for the companies to benefit from this incentive from government. So, Mr. Speaker, the rationale for the policy stated in the report, the reason we are bringing these guidelines clearly indicated in the introduction sections of the report, the fact that this initiative provides incentives to create jobs, to spread industrialization, but also to help companies that are expanding have all been stated under paragraph 5 of the report. And the paragraph 6, our recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is where we capture the guidelines that would guide the committees and this House's consideration of 1D, 1F incentives applications. So under paragraph 6, we see that 6I, the committee lists the scope of taxes that would be granted. And this is premised on the resolution this House passed in respect of these exemptions. So under paragraph 6.1, we see that for companies that are moving to set up factories in new districts, the list of taxes that they could enjoy relief from are one, import get fund levy, import national health insurance levy, EXIM levy, import duty, import VAT, corporate income tax for the first 5 years. So, Speaker, I must say that this is the full scope of the exemptions that the Parliament approved in the resolution. Under 6.2, we go to state a limited scope of exemptions for companies that are not moving to new districts, but need help. And we do have a number of companies that are distressed, that need help, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, we considered it helpful that at least some support would be given to those companies as well. And so we see under 6.2 the list of items, tax items from which a company looking to expand within the 1D, 1F program would benefit from. And they are the import get fund levy, import national health insurance levy, EXIM levy, corporate income tax for the first 5 years. And then 3, we say Parliament shall not approve the waiver of import taxes on imports that are available in Ghana. The committee took the view that if we are supporting industries to expand and to do well, then other initiatives benefiting from government incentives should also be supporting those other companies that are producing in Ghana. So we have indicated as part of our guidelines that we will not approve tax exemption or waiver of import taxes on imports that are available in Ghana. And then, Mr. Speaker, in respect of 6IB, the committee also noted that there are entities that have not got the approval yet. They may have been admitted into the program and may have gone through some processes with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, but they have not gotten the parliamentary approval, and they may not get it until Parliament considers it. In fact, it is a matter of record that there are applicants who have been denied by Parliament. But some companies anticipate Parliament, they import, and they keep those imports in the suspense regime under all kinds of pretenses that we would re-export later, that we want to, all kinds of, so they keep it in the suspense regime without paying the applicable taxes, waiting for the 1D1F approvals to happen. Then they quickly go back and say, we are 1D1F company. So we want to clear these goods without the payment of the applicable taxes. We took the view that until Parliament approves it, you do not have the exemption. Okay, all right. So that is IB. And then the last one is a company applying for 8 months show evidence of financial close for the expansion or for the new factory. And then they must also evidence that they have acquired land. These form the guidelines that would, going forward, guide the committee in making recommendations to this House and hopefully guide this House in approving requests for 1D, 1F. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, when you finish speaking, please put off your microphone. Okay. Honorable member, the motion has been moved. Ranking member for Finance Committee. Ranking, before you come in, let me indulge you to allow me extend sitting beyond the normal hours. It's beyond even 2 o'clock. So kindly permit me to extend. So let's hear you, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion that was moved by the chairman of the Finance Committee. Mr. Speaker, I believe the time has come for us to regulate this tax exemption regime. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the government submitted a bill before us. We have worked on the bill, and very soon the bill will be before us. But before then, there's this government policy of 1D, 1F that we as a committee and as a House believe that policy is being abused by businessmen. Speaker, I say this because everywhere else in the world, there is a limit to which we can grant tax exemption. And any time a government comes out with a policy to grant tax exemptions, businesses will obviously take advantage. It is up to the government and the parliament of the country to regulate it in such a way that businesses will not take advantage of. Mr. Speaker, if I'm a businessman, I will look at government opportunities in government and take advantage. That does not mean I'm criminal. But obviously, there's a loophole that people would like to take advantage. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility to regulate this tax exemption regime. Unfortunately, we are in a situation that every single tax revenue counts for us as a country. We need every revenue because of our fiscal condition. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, this is important for us to address the concerns that is before us. So what the chairman has said, Mr. Speaker, it is in good direction. We as a committee believe that, yes, it's a government policy that seeks to industrialize the economy. But beyond industrialization, businesses have a responsibility to pay taxes. And these taxes is what we will need to obviously grow and pay the services of the country.
they have to contribute to what we call incorporation benefits. Because before you incorporate a company, somebody will have to set the Registrar General's department. Somebody will have to pay for the police to make sure your businesses survive in the economy. And that is why we are saying that, yes, we want them to benefit, but we need to regulate the taxes. We have come to conclusion that if you are small, if you are a new company coming into the economy, for the purposes of 1D, 1F, we'll be giving you full scope of the tax exemptions. Mr. Speaker, we've said that if you are an existing company in the economy already, and you want to expand and want to take advantage of the tax exemption regime, we'll give you a limited scope of this tax exemption regime. Mr. Speaker, but I also think that beyond that, we should allow every single company, regardless of which regime that you belong to not to get some tax exemption, but for national health insurance, you have to pay. You have to pay. Because I believe that for national health insurance, everybody else is contributing for the health of the ordinary Ghanaian and for their own workers. So I can only agree that going further, probably we will need to make a further amendment to what the chairman has proposed or what the committee has proposed to encourage every company to contribute to the national health insurance levy so that the national health insurance will have enough revenue to take care of the purposes that they are established to do. Mr. Speaker, and again, probably we will have to consider the tendencies where existing company would like to expand beyond 2 or 3 companies. If you want to expand 1, yes, we can grant you a limited scope of tax exemption. If you want to expand 2, yes, we can give you another limited scope of tax exemption. But I do not believe that if a company wants to expand like 20, 30 across all constituencies, government should be in the businesses of granting them tax exemption. They're also making profit. So there should also be a limit where if the company decides to expand in a way for their profitability, government will have a limit of granting them those tax exemptions. So, Speaker, I support this wholeheartedly. I believe it is in the interest of the country that we limit these tax exemptions that we are giving to other companies. Because, Speaker, comparatively, if you compare what we are giving, Ghana's tax exemption regime is too generous. Too generous. And time has come for us to curtail it and reduce it and allow these companies to contribute something. Subject to further amendment, whilst members also contribute to this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, the Speaker have convened a board meeting. I see the Secretary to the board alerting me, but I do want to share some thoughts on the matter of the report for the adoption of guidelines for consideration by this House in the implementation of One District, One Factory program. And Mr. Speaker, to thank the leadership of the Finance Committee for bringing this matter up, for Parliament to play a more diligent role in oversighting many of these major economic and social policy initiatives of the executive. And Mr. Speaker, if you recall, even when President Nana Addo Dankwa, this was announced in the 2016 manifesto, when they constituted government in 2017, the thinking at the time was to come for a one-off tax exemption for 1D, 1F. It took this political opposition again to say no. I still recall working with the Honorable Anthony Osaya Koto, doctor, to say that no, let it be done one by one in respect of each particular intervention and initiative. So we should thank you. This is what Parliament must be doing. When we say we are protecting the public purse, this is an initiative intended as protecting the public purse, so that the giveaway in the name of tax exemption to politically aligned entrepreneurs or private sector players, it is not good enough for the development of this country. And I believe that, Mr. Speaker, the 1D, 1F policy of Nana Addo Dankwa, as I understand it, was intended to address 2 important issues. One, how was that going to contribute to the industrialization of this country? Two, how was that going to contribute to employment generation and employment opportunities for young people in Ghana who are desirous of working? And more importantly, Mr. Speaker, for value addition, so that what districts produce can be processed. And Mr. Speaker, let me use your community as an example. In Fomina, we know maybe you produce mango. Nothing prevents government from citing a mango-related factory in Fomina to take advantage of the raw material of mango, the pulp of mango, to add addition. Mr. Speaker, let's state it without any fear of contradiction that we have missed our steps in the implementation of 1D1F. We have seen government officials run round to existing factories and put banners on it as 1D1F. Why? When that person contemplated his factory, where were you? And how can that become part of your policy initiative of a 1D1F? We've missed the steps. Laudable initiative to create employment, to industrialize this country, but not the way we are doing it. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is reported by the World Bank to lose over $2 billion to tax exemption every other year. Permit me to digress. Foreign service officials of this country who used to serve abroad normally will return home with some vehicle of some capacity where they enjoy tax exemption. We granted it, we removed it in the name of exemption. Those were not the exemptions that there is a problem. And Mr. Speaker, this parliament, when we say we want to protect the public purse, we must get serious. Contract documents to this house. In every contract document, you see a clause, tax exemptions. This house is always happy to grant it to foreign companies, not even to local companies, in huge sums of money. Mr. Speaker, I didn't study taxation or economics like the Honorable Atuforson or the Honorable Kwati. But my basic economics that I studied, tax exemption is an opportunity cost of revenue, nothing more. It's an opportunity cost of lost revenue. If you exempt it, the state is losing deserved revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, these guidelines must further be improved, and I demand that it should be improved. One, each of the companies must indicate to this house how many jobs will be created over what period. We should know. Within 1 year, should we expect 50, 100 people employed or not? We should know. Their contribution to GDP, we should be able to measure that this entity which got this tax exemption is making this meaningful contribution to the growth and development of our economy. It should not be a political gift away as we are doing it. Mr. Speaker, some companies have come to this house and Parliament have, without any shame, forgive me, generously granted exemptions to the tune of $128 million. That can create 5 new sustainable entrepreneurs in this country. There are genuine Ghanaian businesses who are looking for just $5 million to start an enterprise which will create jobs. They are denied sometimes because of political leaning. I'm not saying under this government since 1993. That is not right. That is not right. But when you give $28 million for somebody building a hotel, why? The other poor people who in Tema or in Patrick Buame's constituency who want to build even affordable houses, what have you given them? But here, in Parliament, $28 million Pullman Hotel was granted. So, Mr. Speaker, their contribution to employment. Then finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish I could speak more. Indigenous rural industry is still not being developed. This 1D1F, we must target it. I have always repeatedly said that when you go to Brown Hafu region, if for nothing, and you study the geopolitical environment, you know they do cashew well, and you know they do poultry well. So if you have any support Go and support poultry and cashew in Pro-Ahafo region. You'll be creating jobs in the Pro-Ahafo region. 1D1F. Mr. Speaker, these guidelines must deconcentrate 1D1F in Accra Tema. That is wrong. You can't be walking through Accra Tema and on the road, any factory, you put 1D1F. That was not the intention. When you say 1D1F, how many districts do we have in Ghana? 254. Let the Minister for Trade, when he comes here, he struggles to account for the number of 1D1F. In the Upper East, Upper West region, as we see today, you can't count 10. 1. Northern region, you can't count. Except somebody's getting foul, you went and put a banner that this is a 1D1F when it was already in existence. And to the Honorable Member of Parliament, you supervise mining in Obuasi, your constituency. 1D1F. Report on your own, Chairman. Do you have one there in Obuasi? What have you done to ameliorate unemployment in Obuasi? And you are concentrating it in Accra Tema. No. And Mr. Speaker, finally, we must take a position. What this country must do is to learn from other experiences of beginning to provide an enabling environment for the private sector of Ghana to triumph. And Mr. Speaker, my idea, Ghana must begin building industrial parks. What you do with industrial parks is not 1D1F. Government will dedicate a land around Fomina, and government will provide resources to take water, electricity, ICT to that land. Then tell entrepreneurs that take advantage of this land in order that you can build and operate an enterprise. You are spending the money well, but you will take advantage of what they produce in that community and how much value you can add to that community. So 1D1F, you better call it 1 Accra, 1 Tema, 1 additional 1 for Accra Tema, and not 1D1F. So Mr. Speaker, we need, this house must get serious. When we say we have to protect the public purse, the leakages in the name of tax exemptions must cease. And it must cease with us, not just with these guidelines, but with the tax exemption bills that have been in the drawing board since 2017. So, Chairman, I commend you and your members of the committee, but I think that your guideline needs some improvement. And we should insist on indigenization of the enterprises. Is it for members of the District Assembly? So members of Parliament, if you have proposal, and Mr. Speaker, I end with it. Even me, Haruna, I failed as Minister for Trade. Toothpick. You can't produce in Ghana. And then you say you are doing well. Toothpick, just toothpick. I still recall my days at Trade Ministry trying to help somebody in the Kasua area to be able to put up a toothpick factory. So 1D1F, can we help just a Ghanaian to set up a toothpick factory? And with this shame, Mr. Speaker, we celebrate 1D1F. With this, Mr. Speaker, I support it, and I hope you excuse me to join the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. The Vice Chairman of...
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minority leader ended with I will not support the motion. Mr. Speaker, that's just. Mr. Speaker, government has brought before us a tax exemption bill, which we've considered, like my brother Atua Forsen rightly said, which will be taken through the various stages, I believe, before we rise. It will address some of the concerns that members have raised. Mr. Speaker, before that, state institutions were also granting exemptions without recourse to Parliament and without recourse to their constitution, GIPC and other institutions, which this bill seeks to curtail. Mr. Speaker, the overall industrialization policy of this government hinges on not only the 1D1F program, but other incentives and programs which the government is pursuing. The leader talked about free zones. I know government is in the process of announcing the commencement of work in some other free zone enclaves, one around Dawa and one around Bupe, where fuel products will be transported via barges to Bupe and industrial park in Bupe, yes, for other activities to thrive from the north onwards. Mr. Speaker, the thrust of this report rests on the recommendations under paragraph 6, which tries to limit the scope and application of this policy to will be companies who would want to operate within the D1F program. Mr. Speaker, question is, these recommendations ought to be made known to every applicant and ought to be advertised before even the application is brought to the committee. Secondly, if these applications are granted, do we as a House have the capacity to monitor its implementation and usage? I recall the Minority Chief Whip and I have been having some discussions on tax waivers. I even sent him a full scope of tax waivers that have been granted to companies in this country, and the volume is like this, Mr. Speaker. How do we as a House monitor them? Do we have the capacity? Do we get proper reporting from the ministries, departments, and agencies? So if you are passing this guideline, then the House must be equipped enough to be able to follow through and understand the use of these waivers that we are granting. Mr. Speaker, I know the Trade Minister has been on the floor a couple of times to answer questions on how the country has benefited from this policy. At the last count, he said over 178 new factories have been set up and over 158,000 jobs have been created. You might challenge it, but that is what he's told the House. But to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Speaker, I didn't know of a confit juice factory. We all drive to Cape Coast and see the potential of pineapple production on that road. And but for this policy, we wouldn't have realized that factory. So it's a plus for all of us as a country that we are beginning to use the raw material base within for our youth. Mr. Speaker, we didn't know that the tomato factory that has been set up is producing, is working, is creating jobs. We might criticize there are enough examples to cite and say that before 2017, all these interventions and factories were not in place. That's how industrialized countries started. Korea, China did not get there by erecting huge factories. One day, they started from their garages. Some started from small compound homes. And today, they are industrialized. So it's very good we start at a point that we are proud to say that we even have 50 factories in a year. It contributes to tax revenue. It contributes to job creation. And we must laud the government for this initiative. Any government that comes, I believe, will not cancel this program. It will not be in the interest of any government to do away with this program. We've always reviewed programs. We've always not cancelled programs, Mr. Speaker. So I support the motion on the floor and ask that we put in place the right mechanisms to monitor the implementation of these guidelines. And Parliament must resource the Finance Committee to be able to report on all the tax waivers that we grant to any will-be applicant under this program. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, now leadership.
Well, I was hoping I would take one more, if you don't mind.
Respectfully, I'm also supposed to go.
Yeah, for the board meeting, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have been battling with this tax waiver and incentives on the floor for the past decade. Mr. Speaker, this is a good opportunity for us to do things right. And Mr. Speaker, I'm going to commend the committee for the work that they've done, but to say that it's not enough, and to urge the committee to try and finish up on the tax waiver bill, exemption bill that is before them. So that will give us an opportunity to even have a more comprehensive waiver against almost all the waivers that we've been having. So, Speaker, I will not want to repeat some of the things that have been said, but I agree with them, like those who, on their own, just give their grants without coming to the House. Two, as a country or as a parliament, our own failure to annually put together the exemption for that year, just to give us a guide, to have an idea how much we are giving out. That will force us to then measure the benefit that we are getting as against what we are giving. I think these are all things that I expect that when the Finance Committee finally brings the tax waiver exemption bill, we will have the opportunity to deal with. But, Mr. Speaker, even before that comes, Mr. Speaker, I have a number of reservations, and I can say, even though I was talking to the chair of the committee, I will support this only if these amendments are taken into consideration. Other than that, I'll put the fearless resistance to the adoption of this report. Mr. Speaker, one, like my colleague Honorable Atufosin said, for new entrants, companies, yes, I agree, as in paragraph 6, the recommendation, we should grant those as waivers. But I disagree when it comes to health insurance. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is not a secret. When our own vehicles were going to be exempted, they didn't exempt the health insurance levy. I don't see why you want to exempt that for any other person. So that, I want that to be taken out, so the B to be taken out. And then, Mr. Speaker, when we come to the 2, for those who want to expand, Mr. Speaker, my stand will have been very natural that they don't deserve to take anything. But if we want to encourage people, because someone may be in Sawam and wants to expand towards maybe in Suhum or maybe in Tamale or in Kumasi, the same company wanting to expand. So that person may need. But we do not need to give the health insurance and the corporate income tax for another 5 years. No. The Speaker, these two must get out. So that when you are expanding, you only get fund and the enzyme levy for the expansion. And Mr. Speaker, I have 5 other amendments that I want to be incorporated into this. Mr. Speaker, one is a company applying for 1D1F tax incentive should not be permitted to benefit districts. Simply, if you are not careful, people can take advantage of it and then do state capture. And you and I and many of us who have been following the American dream, in 1914, they had to stop Rockefeller and force him to break his company into smaller units because it has become so big and we're totally almost taking everything. That's the essence of history. Today, Amazon in America is not able to expand beyond a certain point. We cannot just give these incentives to one individual who will just run 10 companies, 20 companies, 30 companies. No. In 2 districts, you are done. And Mr. Speaker, I want this amendment to be captured as a condition for us to be able to support this. Mr. Speaker, 2, the other thing that I want captured, where a district has already benefited from a 1D1F tax incentive, another company set up in that district shall not be eligible for the 1D1F tax incentive. Mr. Speaker, if you go to, you see my colleagues is talking about 100 and something companies are benefited. This House has granted 36 waivers to them. Many of them are in the Tema enclave. The real essence, why we want to spread, to get them in many districts. That's why we ourselves, the program is subtitled it, One District, One Factory. Now you have 5 of them in one place, 10 of them in one district. So many other districts are not benefiting. Mr. Speaker, we have 261 districts. This is the only way we can prevent them from choking into one district. Because, Mr. Speaker, part of the reason why when they take the loan, government try to absorb part of the loan and get waivers for them, is that for example, you want to set up a factory in Techima. There may be so many other disadvantages. Maybe where you got the land, there's no access for water, electricity may not be there. So all these things are the reasons. And Kumasi, why will we be giving you all these free things? So, Mr. Speaker, I want us to capture that you cannot establish a 1D, 1F and get a tax incentive in a district that's already benefited. 3, Mr. Speaker, where a company sets up a number of factories across a number of districts, that company is not eligible for 1D, 1F tax incentive beyond 2 factories established. Mr. Speaker, this one is different from just 2 districts. 2 districts having, 1 district having more than 1. But you, the owner of the company too, you cannot just have so many of the companies, as I'm saying. Mr. Speaker, the 4th one is a company that is applying for 1D, 1F tax incentive should indicate how many jobs it is expected to generate in 3 years. That is the only way we can measure what we are giving you against what we are likely to get. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, a company that applies for tax exemptions under the 1D, 1F initiative must show indication of full compliance with all the tax obligations required of it as condition precedent for consideration of the application. Well, Mr. Speaker, recently, once all of them appeared, if the Chairman of Finance will remember, and we said, have you paid all your taxes? Mr. Speaker, they've been operating. I will not want to mention individual names. They live like kings here. Apparently, they've not even paid their taxes for the past 5 years. Yet they were coming here for us to exempt them. So we should make it condition precedent. If you want to come and take exemptions and you are an existing company, show evidence that you paid all your taxes. You and I, before we file for elections, and even as MPs, we are asked to go for tax clearance certificate. Why will companies want to come to this house for incentives and we don't want to ask them whether they paid their tax obligations? Mr. Speaker, we must insist. And Mr. Speaker, yes, you have to join the board. There are so many other things to be done. Mr. Speaker, I want the chairman of the Finance Committee to speak to this amendment that I have proposed, because I want them to be captured as part of the district. And I'm sorry to indicate, failure to accept this additional thing will make it very difficult for me to support this, arrangement, because people have milked the system enough. We cannot continue allowing people to waste our resources, whilst the poor persons who are struggling in the Makwala market, in the Keditia market, in the Kotokraba and others are being squeezed of the few sweats that is left them, whilst these big companies dance around with our own money and end up even repatriating most of them back to their home countries. With this comment, Mr. Speaker, and hoping that the chairman will let us capture this additional this thing so that we can all happily support this report. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, if I may give an information that will be critical for some of the amendments that the Honorable Chief Whip has suggested. Mr. Speaker, I will support the amendment apart from to say that we should be careful with the corporate income tax. We can say this because in the original corporate income tax 2015, there are location incentives that already prescribes for companies that are established outside Accra. So if you are a company and you are operating from regional capitals, you don't pay the full extent of the corporate income tax. And if you're a company, you're operating in a district, you will extent of what the companies in Accra are paying as corporate income tax for the purposes of industries and agriculture-based industries. So we should be careful not to propose something that will conflict with the existing law. Because, Mr. Speaker, what we have here, the corporate income tax for 5 years, relate to only companies in Accra. They are paying the full extent. But the companies that are operating outside Accra already has a rebate. The rebate is in law. The corporate income tax is already in law. So what I will suggest is, probably, Mr. Chairman, you may need to revise F of your recommendations. The recommendations on F, where you say corporate income tax for the first 5 years of operations, it can only be applicable to companies in Accra. But the companies outside Accra, because they are already an inherent rebate in our laws, they will certainly get those rebates and they will not need this. So I suggest probably we modify what we have in F or delete it entirely and go according to what we have. I submit.
Yes. Now, Fana.
Mr. Speaker, before the chairman comes, my worry is that maybe Honorable Atufosi is not following what we are talking about. If you are operating and you don't need tax incentives and what have you, you don't need to come to this house, and those laws will apply. Okay. But where you want to come to this house that we should put you under 1D1F and give you this exemption, we are saying that as part of the condition, these are what you meet. And in doing it, you will not take your mind off the, what do you call it, the corporate tax law. If somebody is going to do it, say in Comuna, already corporate tax and other things have been, there's some effort. But where you want to operate under 1D1F, we are saying the guideline is that this should be from the guideline. So before you come, you know the do's and the don'ts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, leader.
Speaker, first of all, let me commend my colleagues on the other side, particularly single them out and commend them for the sense of patriotism that they've spoken to. I'm particularly touched by a statement coming from the ranking member and my good friend, the minority chief whip. So yes, we are saying the same thing. There's a common denominator. We want to have a close facet on our tax system. And it could not have come at a better time than now. With this global economic challenge that the world is facing. Maybe one will say that we should have had this conversation long ago, but it's better late than never. At a point, I was wondering if we have to really think through these guidelines. But again, I convinced myself on the grounds that this is coming as an interim measure. The main one is the tax exemption bill, right, which will come as a real game changer for us in the context of these matters. But to see that the Finance Committee, yes, very busy, they've done a lot of work. I think they have to put finality to this tax, the exemption bill. It's been on the table for. So, Chair and Ranking, you have to tell us something meaningful. What is it that is holding this bill that cannot be passed? And as a result of that, we have to, well, so we may have to look at it with dispatch. Speaker, on this 1D1F matter, and I've heard my respected leader trying to poo-poo it. I mean, sometimes I wonder. You see, fact be told, there's something in the Constitution that we say is directive principle of state policy. 1D1F is just semantics, but the decision corporate Ghana to industrialize is not new. Decision by corporate Ghana to industrialize is not new. Government that have come and gone, one way or the other, have tried to industrialize. But this government believes that it should be one district, one factory. It doesn't mean that all of it will be achieved in one term, or it's work in progress. So if for 7 years or 5 years we've established 100 factories, and somebody wants to take away credit and say that, oh, you said that every district will have a factory, you have not achieved that, and hence you haven't done well, I beg to differ. Sometimes we speak to negativity excessively in this country. Are we saying that with this policy there are no positives that we can celebrate? Sometimes it is when you celebrate the positives more, it encourages us as a country one entity, one country with one destiny in moving forward. So people should be measured. In particular, I wish my minority leader was here. He should be measured in his criticism. Some good words have been chopped. In my constituency, 3 factories have been established under 1D1F. No, the government. You see, Speaker, I don't want to respond to my colleague, but he is inviting me, and he says, not even one in Asawase. You don't know what I did. I need to give you some lessons. I also moved. You can't sit in Asawase and wait for all the companies to come. You have to make a move. You must help in creating the enabling environment. I moved to the 1D1F Secretariat almost every month, pushing around, lobbying around, and looking for support. Colleagues, on a more serious note, government set the overarching policy, one district, one factory. We as players, political entities, must also support. The last time I heard about Pram Pram, my good friend, he was on the same platform with the president, and it was a factory that was being set up under 1D1F. Let's embrace it with a sense of patriotism as we spoke now. I'm sure that if Tamale Central MP has also embraced this policy and had approached the Secretariat of One District, One Factory, I'm sure we are aware of is it shea butter as one of the important raw materials that could be processed, that they could add value to. So let's depart from the, I don't want to say partisanship, but let's show more patriotism to this policy of government and support it. And I'm sure that all of us will stand to benefit. Speaker, let me conclude on monitoring. MME is everything. In every project, MME is everything. And I don't see it captured in the guidelines. Yes, I was trying to relate to the chairman. The chairman says that these guidelines are guidelines that are going to be adopted before, applications are assessed. And I beg to differ. When these applications are assessed, they are assessed to a certain end. So, probably, I don't know how we can couch it, but if you can find space. For the Ministry of Finance, I don't know the duration that we can attach or assign, but the Ministry of Finance must come and outline budget of monitoring and evaluation under 1D1F. They must report to the committee, and the committee must report to plenary. That must be done. That must be done. And I think if we are able to capture that, it will also go a long way to help us in the interim, because now we'll be operating with guidelines before the bill is passed into law. So this is a very good day, and I hope that all of us can support it. I don't know what the chairman will say to my colleague's suggestion, but it makes sense to me, what he suggested. It makes sense to me. Ranking and chair. What do you say to these suggestions? Let's find a way of incorporating all the possible loopholes. Even though it's a guideline which is going to be applied in the interim, there are some visible loopholes that we should be able to deal with before the bill is passed into law. So with these words, I want to support the motion. I thank you.
Yes, Chairman, you say you want to clarify something?
Yes.
Okay, be brief, please.
I will. Mr. Chairman, to begin with, I'm touched by the sense of patriotism that has attended this debate. I identify with the point made by the Majority Chief Whip that 1D1F has been a good policy, and it is the reason it is necessary for us to tidy the loose and achieve even better outcomes. Just to address a couple of points. References have been made to the tax exemptions bill. Mr. Speaker, your committee has sat on the bill, and what we're looking to do is to get it passed by this House before this month closes. We had a number of amendments. We are trying to get the AG and the Ministry of Finance to incorporate those amendments and relay so that we can get it passed before this month closes. Once that is passed, a lot of the issues will be addressed. For instance, there's a provision in the exemptions bill that speaks to the matter of monitoring. And every 5 years, the minister, if this House approves that provision, will be required to come and account for the specific exemptions that have been granted. So the exemptions bill hopefully will be passed before this month closes, and we urge the House to support that when the bill is relayed by the Ministry of Finance. Speaker, an important point I need to make is that these guidelines are sitting on a resolution that has been passed by Parliament. The 1D1F request came here. Parliament, through a resolution, approved a certain scope of exemptions. I think we should be careful the way we use these guidelines to amend a resolution that Parliament has already passed. Now, that is why you see for under 6I, we have the full scope. For a company looking to set up a factory in a completely new district, I would assume that Parliament would want that factory to benefit full scope granted. I have little reason to think that Parliament wants to rescind that decision, which is why we have captured the full scope for fresh greenfield factories. Now, in respect of the corporate income tax, it is here, honestly, practically, because it was captured in Parliament resolution. The good thing is that since we started, in practice, nobody has enjoyed it because precisely novel at forcing me that many of these entities already enjoyed this exemption under another regime, but we captured it here because the mother resolution upon which these guidelines are sitting. The big point is about the National Health Insurance Levy, where I would plead with my colleagues seeking the amendment that for a fresh company, and Ghana's manufacturing sector is the weakest sector of our economy, if people really want to move into new districts and set up factories, then we should be happy to give these exemptions. And I would respectfully request, especially for the new district, that we let the import NHIL remain for the new district. The other points made about tax compliance, actually we required already, only we have not captured it in these guidelines. We are happy to include it here, but it is part of the working arrangements we'll be using. We'll be requesting tax compliance. The jobs to be created, or the jobs that have been created for those that are already operating, are things we require. We just, because they were not part of the contentious areas, we did not list them here, but we are happy, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman, I hope you are not now moving the motion.
No. So, we'll capture them here. So, if our colleagues would permit, please, in respect of the new factories, the NHIL, please let us keep it. Let us keep it. That's what I would plead with my colleagues, that otherwise the rest of the points are worthy points, and the committee is happy to reflect them in the guidelines.
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of give and take, once it's accepting all the other things and it's just talking about the first one, I think we will agree that we keep the health insurance in that one. We're hoping that when the actual bill comes as a house, we need to look at it. But for now, in the spirit of just making progress, I will forward all these things to the clerk at table for it to be properly captured, and then we'll take the decision. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Just for the avoidance, so for the purpose of our rapporteurs, we are keeping the full scope for fresh companies as we have here. And then the point about setting up factories in more than 2 districts, that it is obtained for the first 2 districts, that has also been accepted. I see that as the main amendment to this. Is there any amendment that?
Yes, we have for the avoidance that, making sure that the tax obligations are cleared is also added. And then,
okay.
And then telling us the number of jobs we'll be able to create in 3 years is also there. And the last one is no two companies will benefit in one district under one D1F. That will be it.
Yes, honorable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is, as many as are in favor of the motion say aye. I'll put the question again. As many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Those against the motion say no. Honorable members, it is obvious the ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
We should add that we are approving it subject to the amendment.
Yes.
All
yes,
the necessary and relevant amendments.
Yes. So the approval is obviously subject to the issues that has been raised, the amendment that has been raised. Leadership, any indication?
We had earlier agreed to take a statement, but I don't know if two statements, the honorable member for Tema Central, and then the honorable
unfortunately,
if he pleases.
Unfortunately, I'm supposed to be at the parliamentary board meeting. And
so I want to humbly suggest, if it so pleases you, that we take the statement today.
No.
I get communication that it will necessarily have to be shifted to tomorrow. So we will appeal to our colleagues, the honorable member for Tema Central, who has been here, and then the honorable Suhini. That Speaker, with your leave, they should put themselves in readiness for tomorrow.
And honorable member for Biposo, Nsuta.
Yes, honorable is yes, Speaker.
So, honorable members, kindly permit me to bring proceedings to a close. We are adjourning the House to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.